In Management Matters, Data Transparency 2015. Some of the top minds in open data convened in Washington, D.C. this past week to discuss data publication, data analytics, and data reporting. It's a pivotal time for transparency in federal spending as the Obama administration implements one law and Congress considers another. For more, I'm joined by Hudson Hollister, Executive Director of the Data Transparency Coalition. Hudson, let's start with the Data Act. Earlier this month, the Office of Management and Budget finalized standards. Now, federal agencies will start to incorporate them into financial systems. Generally speaking, how will that work?
Well, we're optimistic, Morris, that it's on track, at least with regard to the information agencies have to report. OMB and Treasury have agreed on the government-wide data fields that will govern reporting by agencies across the entire executive branch. That means for the first time, it'll become possible for the public, for CFOs, for other managers to visualize spending, all its different components, accounts, payments, budgets, grants, contracts, all as one whole. The data standards will bring that together for the first time. The deadline for agencies to begin reporting is May 2017.
Let's drill down on one aspect of those standards. OMB decided to stick with the DUNS number, a system owned by Dun & Bradstreet. You've been critical of the DUNS system and favor an alternative called a legal entity identifier. Why?
Well, because, Morris, whenever any data standard is owned by someone, when there is a contractor that itself has a proprietary interest in a format or in a data element, that means that the data can't truly be open. It means someone's got to pay in order to use it. It means the government must pay for a license. It means that if anybody outside the government wants to use the data, they also must pay. And that prevents the basic public interest from being served.
We reached out to OMB for comment on their decision to stick with the DUNS number. They didn't respond in time for this interview. Regardless of the reasoning, it will be hard for agencies to reverse course once they implement all 57 data standards into their financial systems. Is the DUNS number a done deal?
No, it's not a done deal. OMB, aside from agreeing to use the DUNS number for now, also committed to set up a process to reevaluate what data formats and what data standards should be used in federal spending in the future. And we'll be participating in that process. We are awaiting the details of that, but we do think that the public interest of having a data standard nobody owns that allows the data to be freely reused, ultimately that'll prove compelling.
Hudson, you're also tracking a piece of legislation in Congress called the Financial Transparency Act of 2015. What is it and where does it stand today?
Well, Morris, if the Data Act transforms federal spending in the way it's reported, the Financial Transparency Act will transform financial regulation and the way that it's reported. The 8 different agencies that are considered financial regulators, as you might guess, they use completely different formats and different standards to collect all of that information under the securities laws, the commodities laws, the Banking Act. If we had consistent data standards, then investors would have better access to information, the agencies themselves could use analytics to find the next Enron, and the companies that must report, the banks, the financial firms, they could report automatically. Data standards in financial regulation are good for everybody, and that's what the Financial Transparency Act, which was introduced by Congressman Issa and 11 other co-sponsors in May, would do.
Now, in May, we spoke to Rich Wilkinson at Neo Systems Corporation, one of the government's top accounting firms. Here's what he had to say.
I think what's being done is a really good idea. They just need to make it work. Getting them to agree on data standards in the kind of time period this bill's talking about, you're looking at a 2-year clock. That's pretty daunting.
Art Hudson, has there been any talk of relaxing that time period, or is it full steam ahead?
Well, that's a matter for the different negotiators in the Financial Services Committee on the House side and the Banking Committee on the Senate side to decide on. But what's encouraging is that everyone seems to agree that if all these different agencies are collecting information from the financial industry, they should use consistent data formats to do it.
You hosted the 3rd annual Data Transparency Gathering in Washington a few days ago. What's on the horizon for data transparency in the coming months?
The thing that makes us the most excited is that there is a growing constituency that sees the connection between these changes in federal spending that the Data Act requires and the changes in financial regulatory reporting that the Financial Transparency Act requires. These are different areas, they're different professions even, but the technological change that these policy changes are hitting on is the same.
It's always good to have you on the show. Hudson Hollister, Executive Director of the Data Transparency Coalition.
Thank you
Thanks
very
again.
much.